Today, I'm behind it with a 2022 Lexus LX600, and for this year, the LX600 gets overhauled and refreshed completely. It now utilizes a brand new platform that's more rigid and a lot lighter, 400 pounds lighter to be exact. Also, this brand new LX600 does get a brand new look on the outside, a very upgraded interior cabin, and that tried and true 5.7 liter V8 is no more, replaced with a brand new 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. So how good is that brand new engine? How good is this LX600 and how does it drive on the roads? Well, let's find out. All right, I'm on the road. Let's see how good this brand new LX600 is, and let me tell you more about it. When the brand new LX600 first debuted, people were kind of turned off by the brand new look. But with this F Sport, things are a little bit different. The spindle grille looks more like a traditional spindle grille with a black mesh. And to me, I think this is the one that I like the best. So if you're looking for something that looks like the old LX and something that has a more sinister, mean look, then you may want to look at the F Sport. Now, besides the new grille, Lexus did make other changes. For example, the headlights, they're a little bit smaller, so more sleek looking, and I do think it looks better. And then the bottom bumper has been revised as well. Because of the F Sport, there's like a little painted lip underneath to kind of separate this from all their trim levels. Now, if you're looking at the side profile, the LX looks very similar, and I think Lexus did that on purpose, just to make sure that you still recognize this is a LX600. This F Sport does come with unique 22-inch wheels, alloy wheels painted black, and it matches with the rest of the exterior pretty nicely. If you look overall, there's not that much chrome, just a little bit, and they're more like shadow chrome. And if you look at the roof rail, they're more like aluminum. So there's just a little bit on the outside. I think it's an elegant look. Now, one thing that I'm not a fan of are the built-in side steps. Now, LX has always had these, and they're kind of like a half step. They're big enough, so for kids, I think they're useful. For adults, it's hard to just get your foot on there. And they don't look very good. You can't customize it because they're part of the body, right? And for most adults, I would say you don't need it. So they kind of just get in the way. They make getting in and out of the LX even harder with them. So I'm not actually a fan of the built-in side steps. I wish they were powered that would go in and out like a lot of the other modern full-size luxury SUVs. The back of the LX does look very different though. I love the back with the exception of how squared it is. I love the new modern LED taillights, and they kind of stretch from one side to the other. I like the new badge design with Lexus in the middle. I think that looks fantastic. But if you look at how square the new LX is, it's a little weird. It's like very, very square in the back. Almost looks like a bus to me. So I know some people will hate me for that comment, but yeah, it's almost like too square. And underneath, there's nothing, other than exhaust tip, but they're not chrome, it's not dual exhaust, there's no finishers, nothing. It's kind of plain underneath. Now, I did mention about this new platform, which is shared with the Land Cruiser, and many people are upset that we're not going to get a new Land Cruiser. But honestly, if you look at Land Cruiser sales in the US, they have been dismal over the last decade. There's not a whole lot of people buying Land Cruiser because they're very expensive. So Lexus/Toyota made a decision to just offer the LX. Now, with this brand new platform, it is more rigid, so it'll be better for the road and for corner carving and overall for off-roading if you happen to choose to go off-roading in a six-figure SUV. However, the biggest difference has to be the weight savings. The platform is lighter, and Lexus made many other changes to make this one 400 pounds, over 400 pounds less than the previous generation. Obviously helps with acceleration, helps with fuel economy, yes. But the one thing it doesn't really help on is space. If you look at the dimensions of this brand new LX600 versus the LX570, everything was within like a ½ inch. So it's like a ½ inch longer, a ½ inch wider, like a ½ inch taller, but it doesn't grow significantly in size. And you could argue, well, this LX is already so big, you don't really need it. But if you do compare this to other modern full-size luxury SUVs or full-size SUVs in general, you'll realize there's a big difference in space. Starting out with the space behind the third row, you can see there's hardly any space for even groceries. And back there, you do have power folding switches for the third row, which is nice, and they work differently than the third row in the last generation. They do fold flat into the floor, which is nice, but unfortunately, there's no switches to fold down the second row. Unlike all other modern SUVs out there, there's at least a dedicated switch back there that folds down a second. Makes it very convenient in case you want to load something in really quick, right? Not in this LX600. And if you do fold down the second row, you'll see that they do stick out about 6 to 8 inches off the floor. So it's not level, unlike most other modern SUVs. And if you move in the second row, you'll realize, yeah, this LX600 actually isn't all that big. Not as big as it seems from the outside. So I'm 5'10", and you can see I have about 3 to 4 inches of legroom left, which is okay. It's not bad. And if you move in the second row, you'll realize, yeah, this LX600 actually isn't all that big. Not as big as it seems from the outside. So I'm 5'10", and you can see I have about 3 to 4 inches of legroom left, which is okay. It's not bad. But versus some of the other full-size SUVs I've tested, like for example, I just got done testing a Grand Wagoneer. There is apartment-like room inside, and not so much with this LX600. In fact, I was comparing dimensions before I started this review. The Grand Wagoneer is 14 inches longer than this LX. So think about that. So obviously it has more room for the second row, third row, and for the cargo space. Now, the one good thing about space is there's plenty of headroom. So you can see in the second row, I have loads of headroom. And if you want to get into a third row, yes, you could fold the seat up and it kind of folds upwards. It's still very hard to get in. And once you get in a third row, it's extremely uncomfortable for adults. And that's because the seats are virtually flat on the floor. Now, even for kids, I would argue it's uncomfortable because how low the seats are to the ground. Now, I would say that there is a decent amount of legroom because even me, I could fit back there with about 1 inch or 2 of legroom. Not a whole lot of headroom, but yeah, those seats are just way too low to the ground. But you do get one USB port and power folding switch for your seat back on both sides, and you get vents on top as well. Now, moving back to the second row, passengers will get climate control, heated and ventilated seats, depends on your trim level. This F Sport does come with both. And you get manual sunshades. They're not automatic, which I wished they were. This is a 6-figure SUV, so kind of expected that to be standard. It's not. Now, up front, space is not an issue. Plenty of headroom, plenty of shoulder room and hip room. Lexus did make the decision to make the center console extremely wide and tall. So their purpose is to make you feel like you're in a cozy SUV, like you're being hugged in, right? But unfortunately, it does give you the illusion that you don't have a whole lot of space up here. But you do. It's just that the center console is so wide, so wide and so tall. It makes it very comfortable to put your arm here and to reach the new screens. I will admit that, but kind of takes away from your space over here. Now, as for this new dash design up front, well, it's light years better than the old generation. Lexus did spend a lot of time up here, and you could tell. I'm not so sure I'm a fan of the 3 screens that you get up here, but let me tell you more about it. First of all, you do get a screen inside your digital gauge cluster. That's pretty standard, but you're not getting a full digital cluster like most other luxury SUVs. It's just a 8-inch screen inside the middle, and you get a digital speedometer, tachometer, and you get to see all of your navigation and trip info and safety info and settings, right? Pretty standard. It's okay, but again, versus some of the others in this space, it's a little bit behind. Now, the brand new infotainment screen, it's like a 12.3-inch screen. This reminds me of the screen inside other Lexus vehicles I have tested. This one in particular is pretty good. It's very responsive, it moves fast. The menu settings are okay, you can figure it out pretty easily on the left side, right? And the usual stuff, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Wi-Fi, stuff like that, all included. But this is smaller than the newer giant screens that you see, say, inside the Lexus NX, and also inside the brand new Toyotas, those huge 14-inch screens. I wish this LX actually had one of those. I think that makes more sense. Everything is bigger, easier to touch, and unfortunately that's not what you get inside here. So you get another screen underneath. It's like a 7-inch screen, and this one you use mainly for your climate control. So you can control your second, third row, first row. I mean, you pretty much adjust whatever you want in here. It does give you a little bit more settings, like your drive modes, and it tells you your accelerometer, your brakes, your four-wheel drive system. It gives you a little bit more info. So it's split up into two, and it looks good. It looks good. It looks fancy, but I wish Lexus just went with that huge 14-inch screen instead. So you do have 3 separate screens, and you also get heads-up display. So technically it's a 4th screen, right? And the heads-up display is a little bit, I don't know, dated because it's not as bright and doesn't give you as much info as some of the other ones I've seen. For example, there's a Kia that I just tested recently, EV6, that has this like augmented reality kind of heads-up display. Really cool, really wild. Really wowed me, but this one is just pretty standard. So up front, I do think the dash design looks better. I think it's very easy to touch, this high center console, and everything's within your fingertips, but I do wish Lexus did it differently. Now, underneath the screens, you have your climate controls, and you have a couple big buttons for your multi-terrain select and your crawl control. So yes, you can go off-road in this LX600, but again, I wonder who's gonna be doing so when this is 6-figure plus. Now, in addition, you get all the usual niceties, like memory seats, you got wireless charger, heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel. Those are pretty standard these days. You got home blink buttons and a sunroof. But here's the thing, with the sunroof, this is a regular one. It's not a panoramic one. Almost every single luxury SUV has a panoramic sunroof, but it's not available inside this LX. I'm not sure why, so I have to complain about that. With that said, there are some features you get with this LX600 that you normally don't see with other luxury SUVs. For example, you get a center locking rear differential. So in case you did want to go off-road, that is available. You get a full-time 4-wheel drive with this LX, not all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. And inside this F-Sport, you get a Torsen limited slip differential. So that also gives you more traction. Inside this F-Sport, you get different dampers. You also get variable suspension tuning. Also variable steering tuning as well. These are exclusive to the S-Sport, so it does make the drive a little bit different and a bit more sporty. So those are also inside this LX600. And as for those features, what's cool is around town, slow speeds, parking lot, I know the variable steering is helping because it's very loose and very easy to turn into spots and tight spaces. But when you're driving and getting up to speed, it doesn't feel that way. So the adaptive steering does make a difference. But overall, I like the precision and I like the feeling. I think it's good. And as for the suspension, I've read that the F-Sport is a little bumpier than the regular LX600 suspension. And I do think that's the case. When the roads are not perfect, you do feel a little bit more bumps and rattles and yeah, you just feel a little bit more inside. It isn't too bad because this is still a luxury SUV and isn't as bad as I think some people make it out to be. But I can't really tell you without driving a regular one so that I can compare the two. Now, I haven't talked about how this LX600 drives with this brand new powertrain. Well, that, I believe, Lexus nailed it. This brand new engine paired with this brand new 10-speed automatic is beautiful. Beautiful. Around town, it feels so nice. So nice. It'll make you forget about the old V8, although I love that V8. I love that V8 inside the old LX and all the other Toyotas that used it, but it was very thirsty, just extremely thirsty. And Lexus wanted to make a change, of course, to improve fuel economy. So this brand new engine is 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, producing 409 horsepower and about 480 pound-feet of torque. So there's a big improvement with torque and even horsepower. I haven't tested 0 to 60 yet, but around town, it's very smooth. Power in all the gears. I never feel like this LX is slow, and I think it's a good one. The only thing is you just don't know how reliable it is, right? The old 5.7 liter has been used for a decade, more than a decade, and it's been proven to be reliable. This one, not so much, so we'll see how it is, and we'll determine that later. But I will say, it does make this LX600 very enjoyable to drive. Other good things about this LX600, well, it's super quiet in here. All Lexuses are very quiet. This LX600 is almost beyond quiet. It is very quiet, which is nice. The seats are also very comfortable. Previous generation of F Sports, doesn't matter which ones, had very uncomfortable seats. Not anymore with this new generation. Even though they're F Sport and they're a little bit more aggressive, they're not too aggressive. The back bolsters, the bottom bolsters, right? Just right. They're holding me in without being very uncomfortable. So I'm pretty held in right now. It's snug, and I like that. But the only thing is, with the snugness, it's very hot. That's why ventilated seats is a godsend for these seats. So I like the seats, and even in the second row, I think they're very comfortable. And I do think the seats do make the F Sport pop a little bit, especially when you open the door. So I like contrast and I like them. The overall seating position is also very nice because this is a full-size SUV. You're sitting very high up off the ground and you're looking down upon everyone. I like that feeling, and I think most people do too. And the visibility is great. Big windshield, big windows all around. The only exception is the rear window when you have the third row headrests up. If you don't have them up, it's fine. But when you have them up, they do block like half your visibility from the rear. And I wish there was a digital rear view mirror, which is not available with this F Sport. And you know, that would solve the issue of the headrest in the back. Unfortunately, it's just not here. See, that's the thing too. Like, that is pretty common these days with full-size luxury SUVs, even inside the upper trims of Toyotas, and it's not available here for some reason. I don't know why. Now, after driving around, I kind of understand this coziness that I complained about before, you know, how it's too wide and it takes up all your space. But because of the coziness, I think it tricks you into thinking that this is a smaller SUV than it is. Because now that I've driven it around for a while, I think this is like, okay, it's just like driving any other mid-size SUV out there. But it's really not. It's a huge full-size SUV, but this tricks you into thinking that you're the smaller SUV. So I kind of get it now. I kind of get why Lexus did this. There's definitely good grunt. So I just accelerated from about 25 to 60. Yeah, I do get pushed back a little bit. This LX definitely feels faster than the previous generation. So this new engine and transmission definitely gets you power whenever you need it. So that's a big plus. As for pricing, there are 5 different trim levels to the brand new LX600. The base is just called a base, starts around $88,000. And if you want a little bit more features, such as standard third row seats, you have to go up to the premium. Now the premium starts around $96,000, so there's quite a big jump. And after the premium, you have the F Sport, which is what I'm driving today. And F Sport's a little bit different because the outside looks different than all the other trim levels, and there's some exclusive stuff I already mentioned that's only in the F Sport. Now the F Sport starts around $102,000, so it is in the six-figure range. Now if you wanted more luxury, you could jump up to the luxury trim, and that's the next one at $104,000. And finally, the last trim level, it's called Ultra Luxury, and it starts at $127,000. So there's a huge jump between luxury and ultra luxury. And the biggest difference is in the second row. If you want to stretch out like a king or a queen, well, then you may want to consider it because the rear seats are different. They fold almost completely flat, so you can lay down and stretch out. You can stretch your legs. They have massage function, and there's many other add-ons to the ultra luxury. So that's the final trim level. So overall, what are my thoughts about this brand new LX600? Well, it's a big upgrade versus the previous LX570. That 570, unfortunately, was just out for a little bit too long. It just become way too outdated. And this one is a big upgrade. From the interior, the fit and finish, the technology, the screens, right, I think is better than the previous generation. I would argue that the outside looks also have been improved, and same thing with this powertrain. Although it's unproven in terms of longevity, you do get more power, you also get more fuel economy, right? And towing too. You could tow up to 8,000 pounds in this brand new one versus 7,000 pounds from the last one. So in terms of numbers, everything improved, right? So if you versus this LX600 versus the LX570, well, it's a big improvement. However, with that said, if you compare this LX600 to the competition, the new Land Rover, a Mercedes GLS, the new Grand Wagoneer, I feel this LX600 didn't do enough. There are just a lot of little things that are missing. I mentioned many of those things already in this video that are standard on other SUVs in this class that's missing with this LX600. Regardless of all the negatives I just stated, Lexus loyalists will continue to buy this LX600. And that's because LX is one of the most recognizable names. It has great resale value. It almost never breaks down. And people love the Lexus experience, the customer service they get at the dealerships. But if you're in the market for a luxury full-size SUV with the most features, the most power, the most towing, the most size, the best drive, you're not going to find any of those things with this LX600. This, I would say, is somewhere in the middle on all the things I've just said. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for my future review videos. Take care. Bye-bye.